get, you can get a lot of money. It's like a service, like actors, she's going to be, yeah.
I wanted to switch to that.
I'll find out the name, the real name of the one you use.
Go ahead, let her in. Oh, please. You're right, fine.
Because I heard them more changes for real time.
I'll find out tomorrow, I'll email her.
Yeah.
But you know what, a lot of people.
They're pretty good. I mean, they don't teach you everything, but they're the kind of candidates.
I was listening to this on my Facebook on my.
I understand, brother. Wasn't on it. What was when you said?
I just don't mind.
Hi, how are you?
I would imagine.
How you go?
Thank you.
This has been going on, so now we gotta work on something else.
Maybe second board meeting.
So,
I did some.
will they have?
The agenda.
Like I said, they've been going on.
He wants to explain.
Call the meeting, May 27th of order. Roll call. April 27th.
Ms. Quackenbush? Here. Mr. Spindell? Mr. Rosenberg?
Here?
Mrs. Piella? Here. Mr. Klein?
Here.
Mrs. Franco? Here. Mr. Barbarulo?
Here.
Mrs. Wallace?
Here.
Mr. Banta?
Here. Join me in the flags. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law is enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of, to attend the meetings of public bodies in which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon in accordance with the provisions of this Act, the Fair Law Board of Education. And because notice of this meeting be published by having a date, time, and place thereof distributed to the persons on the approved list, posted in the Board of Education Administrative Office, and sent to the Bergen Record and the Community News. The announcement posting for the regular monthly meeting, public hearing 2017-18 budget, along with the date, time, and place thereof, was distributed on January 26, 2017. The items to be discussed during the closed work session of the regular monthly meeting, public hearing, may include personnel matters, student matters, legal matters, negotiations and grievances, tactics and techniques utilized in protecting public safety and property. The results of these discussions will be made public as soon as possible. I'd like to approve the minutes for the special action meeting of February 27, closed session personnel March 6, work session March 7th, closed session personnel March 15th and March 20th, special action meeting March 29th, residency hearing March 16th, grievance hearing March 16th, regular monthly meeting, preliminary budget adoption March 16th, executive closed session March 16th, executive closed session 2 March 16th, special action meeting April 19th, and work session of April 24th. May I have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, by law, we're going to have a very special presentation on HIV and incidents, report on violence and vandalism, and I will turn that over to Dr. Boston.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to our board meeting. As Mr. Banta said, we have a number of presentations that must take place during the month of April, so I'll move into those in a few minutes. I do want to call your attention to some of the day-to-day activities that do happen in our district. One is, as you walked in, you might have received a copy of an announcement that we have put out to our middle school and high school parents, and it's about a series that is called 13 Reasons Why. This is a television series. We're getting information all across the country that adolescent children are binge watching this show, and it's a show about suicide. And we put out an advisory to the parents because we want parents to have an idea of what the show's about, so that parents can monitor what's happening when their children are watching television. So this will be posted on our webpage tomorrow. It has gone home, or will go home either today or tomorrow, to our middle schoolers as well as our high school staff. We did talk to the elementary principals. They felt at this time it wasn't appropriate because it's based on a book that really is a higher reading level. But from time to time, we have sent home through our principals a number of these health bulletins, and one of the things that Natalie and I talked about today is setting up a section on our webpage in which we have a health section where we get advisories all of the time about substance abuse issues, mental health issues, other issues affecting children, adolescents, and teenagers. So we want to move forward in that direction. So I do have a number of mandatory reports tonight. I tried to summarize them as much as possible. And I'll start with the school performance report. This is what it looks like if you picked up a copy when you walked in. The first thing you'll notice is that this is a report from 2015 to 2016. So this is a report about data in our schools from the last school year. And it's unfortunate that we received this from New Jersey so late, because it makes it pretty difficult here in April to do something to address what might have occurred last year. But what I would encourage you to do, this is a very, very voluminous report. The elementary school reports are about 50 pages each. And I suggest that if you have an interest in any of the elementary schools or any of our schools, that you take a look at the individual school webpage to get as much information as you can. But I do want to tell you what you'll find when you look at the school performance report. Years ago, this started as the New Jersey School Report Card. Every year it has grown in size and in scope. One of the sections is about demographics, so you can go onto your school homepage, look up enrollment by grade, by gender, by ethnic and racial subgroups, and also language diversity. That data may not be important to some people, but it's important to us because some of our applications for specific types of grants are based on this data. So it's important for us to accumulate the data in an accurate way. Academic achievement scores are there for anyone who wants to look at them. This includes PARCC data and New Jersey Ask. Just a reminder that we still use NJ Ask as the science assessment in grades 4 through 8. Other students are assessed through PARCC. And then the National Assessment of Educational Programs will happen from time to time. It's called NAEP. And this comes from the United States Department of Education. And what the US DOE does is they'll pick schools at random. And so obviously one of our schools was involved with this last year. It's a program in which fourth graders are tested. You can imagine what it's like to be a kid who is in fourth grade and has to take the NAEP, the federal test, the PARCC, and then the NJ Ask in science. So, you know, that's a year where I think everyone is exhausted by the end of the year with the amount of assessment. But the results are there, should anyone want to look at it. Student growth in language, arts, literacy, and math refers to PARCC scores. And then what you'll notice is that the school performance report does change based on the nature of the school. So the middle school one is a little bit different, and the high school one is very, very different than the school performance reports of our elementary schools. Absenteeism is featured, chronic absenteeism trends, and then for the high school, PSAT data, SAT data, and ACT data. Very important source of information, both of these, for college planning and career readiness. AP information for the high school, and we offer a very comprehensive advanced placement program here. Visual and performing arts participation. So what New Jersey does is they ask us to give them data on how many students are enrolled in the fields of visual and performing arts, so that we can see how many of our kids are in fine and performing arts as compared to state norms and then nearby districts as well. And then career and technical ed participation for the high school. And then you will find, if you go back on the high school site, graduation rates. Ours are very, very good. Dropout rates, post-secondary enrollment rates. So you can get data about attendance at 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges, military service, and other post-secondary participation by students. And then the final section is school climate. The length of the school day is reported for all of the schools in New Jersey, the amount of instructional time, student to staff ratio, suspension rates, student expulsions, and faculty attendance. So there's a wealth of information. What we usually find is that the newspapers will pick up this database, and you'll probably see comparative data in the Bergen Record or the Star Ledger, and most of your larger state papers. All of it is also contained not only on our school website, but also on the New Jersey Department of Education website. It's, I think, a rich field of data. It has grown, and it is valuable in some ways as a tool. I just wish it was more current, because the turnaround time on this data, HARC scores, are going to be a little bit better than it had been. But we're dealing with old data, and we get it so late in the year that it makes it a little bit difficult. So I'm going to slow down for a moment. Any board member questions on this piece? Right.
The PSAT, SAT, ACT, is that, what is that, the average scores that the kids are getting? Or?
So what you'll see is if you go on for any of these, what you'll see is the high school scores, and then you'll see scores compared to the state itself.
Okay. Thank you.
I personally wish it would come with a much bigger explanation of what the scores mean. It's kind of funny to me always when I look at what they consider college and career readiness for elementary schools is the amount of time of absenteeism. So the school district actually gets marked down for absenteeism when we have nothing to do with absenteeism. Like, we have no control over the parents keeping their kids out of school. So, so some of this stuff is actually quite interesting.
It is interesting.
It's hard to compare.
Hard to compare, and it shows how critical your initial data input is. So you may or may not be aware of this, but New Jersey now for about 10 years has been building a massive database called NJ Smart. So that contains information on all of the students. Every student has a specific identification number, and also on the faculty. So that the information is there. The use of it can be a little bit slow, but it has created as well a burden on many districts. So, I think that in our district, we have the staff to address this. In tiny districts, this data gathering can be a very, very difficult burden for everyone, because they just don't have, and you have a lot of K6, K8s in New Jersey that might have 1 or 2 administrators and maybe 200 to 500 kids in here, whereas Fair Lawn will probably by June hit 5,000 students. So, but it's there, and I would encourage parents, if you're interested in your school or any of the schools in the district, all that information was posted last week. You can take a look. If you have a question about it, the first call probably should be to your building principal. Ms. Lakatina or I can also field any calls about it. The purpose of all of this is to keep the public informed. And I think that the spirit of that is good. The time in the bureaucracy is a little bit difficult to handle, but at the end of the day, I'd rather have parents and community members have information than not have information. And when you look at our information, I think we're in pretty good shape, but I look at it as a beginning, no matter what it is. I mean, this is baseline data that can be used by our experts at any time in the future. So one of our other required reports is,
Let me just, if
I'm sorry.
the public has any questions
Sure,
on
I'm
it.
sorry.
Does this
Just
performance?
state your name for the tape, please.
Oh, Stephen Brandt. I was Bradbury. Does this school performance report have any effect on school rankings? I know I mentioned that at a prior meeting regarding the open borders. So does this impact those ratings? I remember you addressed that. Which I'm sorry. Remember, I think in the March meeting, we talked about school rankings, how.
Right, I recall.
Does this impact that?
I believe the school rankings are done by private.
Not by the state,
companies.
so the
Although-
state of New Jersey does not rank schools.
They use the
they
data
just-
that the state finds but how they create their own like algorithms is up to them.
Oh, I understand, okay.
Then you have magazines and other services, some newspapers that rank schools in the same way that US News ranks hospitals and attorneys and automobiles and so on and so forth. So, but the State Department of Ed by itself does not do that. But the data itself could be used by school districts and should be used by school districts.
I think, if I may, the only thing you'll see that the school report cards do now is it will decide whether or not schools have reached their goals or not. And that's how it kind of, those are kind of in sort of a way related to other schools that the state deems of one's likeness, which is pretty debatable the way they put them together. But you can see like the goals we reach, and I think schools are probably more properly rated, not compared each one to another, but compared to, again, to schools of its likeness and whether or not it's reaching goals that are set by the state. So that's probably a much better determination if you want to see how we're doing.
We'll move on to another required report. And for those of you who were with us, I'm sure the board members remember in October, I provided a violence and vandalism and HIV report. So this is required by New Jersey. And as I said just a moment ago, New Jersey is rich in data. They require us to enter HIV, violence and vandalism data on a daily basis. However, when I did the report in the fall, that was for the second half of last school year. So what New Jersey does is they take the year, split it in two. So my fall report was data from the last school year. Then at mid-year, we take the data in the period of September all the way up to January, and then we'll take a snapshot of that. That is reported now. So what that means is in October of the following school year, of 2017-2018, you'll be hearing about our data from February through the end of the year. So the data included here are HIV investigations and the electronic violence and vandalism report. Electronic violence and vandalism report means we literally report to the state of New Jersey electronically every time there's an incident that takes place on school grounds. There's a submission to the DOE, and then the DOE converts that and turns it into here. I want to start with bullying, HIV. Once again, I'm giving you the definition, and really I want to just spend a few moments on that, because if there is one topic that is generally across the board so misunderstood in New Jersey, it's HIV. And so that is because the state defined it in very narrow, specific categories. So why did I say that it's misunderstood? Because frequently what happens is we will have students and parents come forward and say, an incident took place and it's bullying. And an incident might have taken place, and it might be what we traditionally call bullying, somebody picking on somebody else. But it may not fit the state definition. So if you look at the state definition. It could be a single incident, it could be a series of incidents. And interestingly enough, and this is important for us here, is it can happen off school grounds. So sometimes we will get a report that something happened over the weekend, or it might have happened at Little League field. We still are the investigators. But if you look at the characteristics mentioned here, could be a perceived characteristic, but generally, not generally, specifically, to be considered an act that is HIB, the characteristic must be race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, gender identification, mental, physical, or sensory disability. So, or any of the others, and the courts have extended the definition of it. So, what would be an example of that? You know, two students of the same race get into a fight that may be HIB, or it may not be. But as we know, it's a fight. What does that mean? That means that a student can have a disciplinary consequence as a violation of the code of conduct of the district. If it's found to be an HIB, there could be another consequence as a result of that. So, hostile educational environment is also included in the definition. And then we have, I think, a very well done flow chart that indicates what happens here in the district when an HIB allegation takes place. And so we go from the report to the principal, and the principal's determination is it an HIB, or is it a code of conduct? So depending on the principal's finding, it could go either way. And then as we walk through it, the principal always works with a specialist. It will eventually come to me. So one of my jobs in the central office is I'll take the results of the HIB investigations. I will read the results of the investigations. Then I determine whether I think it's an HIB or not. And then that will go as a series of reports to the Board of Education. So at every monthly meeting of the board, unless there's been no HIB reports at all, we will then look at the HIB reports from the prior month. Sometimes, or most of the time, they will be affirmed. Sometimes the board will overturn them. And you'll notice too, the parents have a right to appeal decisions of the board. And so, but this flow chart I think is done very, very well. You notice that there are timelines for the board to decide and timelines for the education folks to move through it. And then, in terms of our specific results in the first half, let's say, of the current school year, we see the total number of HIBs, 16 incidents that were affirmed in the district. What's interesting, and also I want to connect it to my first comments about the 13 reasons and the talking points, is we'll see that the higher number of HIBs are occurring at both middle schools. Very, very few at the elementary and very, very few at the high school. I see that as a state trend and a national trend in which middle school students throughout New Jersey, and I think throughout the country, struggle with issues about self-esteem, how to respond to social media, finding themselves, identifying themselves as humans. And so I think that the data, if we did it on a longitudinal basis, you'll see that more and more middle school students experience stress. I think that they experience a need to be connected to other kids, and when they're not, especially because of the results of social media, that can cause some to lash out. So I think that the trend, what I'm saying, is not simply a Fairlawn trend, but a trend that we would see across the board in other communities as well. One of the thrusts of the administration this year, and we talked to the board about this in September or October, is I'm encouraging my principals to report everything that possibly could be And I think the word has been out there. We're getting more reports than maybe historically, just because we have more of a focus on trying to do it. My view of HIV reports is that when we get one, that's an opportunity not to punish a child, but rather to teach the correct behavior. And we have a number of ways of responding when there is an HIV. That includes counseling, which is always included as part of that. Sometimes it can be simple steps that take place. But I encourage my people to talk to the kids. What mistake did you make? What could you do differently the next time? And so I think that that's part of our cycle. And then violence and vandalism. This is interesting because I'm going to talk about the categories. So these words mean different things to different people. In Fairlawn, we define vitalism as a fight. What is a fight? It could be pushing and shoving on the playground. It could be a fight for kids in the middle school or high school. The number 16, when we look at the fact that we have almost 5,000 students, I think puts us in pretty good shape compared to other districts. The weapons, I went through the files again today. Here's our weapons. So in other districts, their definitions of weapons, I mean, they might be different, but there are statewide definitions that we use. One of these was a pencil, one was a plastic tool, one was a Boy Scout pocket tool, and one was an air gun. You might see that weapons in other places could be different kinds of weapons. But all the administrators who fill out the forms are trained by the DOE. There are protocols on how we define these weapons as well. Vandalism may not be what you're thinking of. Vandalism we had were 2 cell phones that were stolen. But there's not a category by itself for theft. Those thefts are into the vandalism component of that. What you will see eventually is this data online as well. If you go through and look on the DOE website. And then we broke it out on the next sheet by school. So you have information about violence, vandalism, weapons, substance abuse across the board in each of the schools in the district. And then we use this administratively as a baseline. And you know, our plan would be to continue with training. If you look at the last 2 pages, we have a significant amount of training for our staff. Most of this is face-to-face. Some of this is now online. We train people in our policies, affirmative action. Cyberbullying is a major focus of our training, and we see more and more of the HIV coming as cyber, online bullying as opposed to face-to-face. That's a new dynamic that maybe schools didn't have a couple of decades ago. Character education programs and suicide awareness programs. And then we've had a number of diversity days and other trainings take place in the district. There's a plethora of board policies that support the HIV policy, and you can see them written out for you. So I'll slow down, and questions about violence and vandalism, HIV data, reporting procedures, anything in that category.
Board members? Members of the audience? Questions about the process? Seeing none.
Okay, we'll go more slowly and in more detail with the next required April presentation, and that is our budget. So let me tell you that the adoption of budgets in the state of New Jersey is controlled on a timeline established by the state of New Jersey. This is our second major conversation about the budget. We talked about a preliminary budget, which the board approved a month ago. So what does that mean? That means that as we started to put together this budget, I want the public to be informed of what's involved with the budget. How do we start it? Well, obviously, we're starting with the budget that was in existence. And then we start to define what are the needs, what are the personnel needs, what are the facility needs, what are our supply needs. And we do that through central office, talking to, and that includes central office, business, curriculum needs. We start to put together, really in late October, early November, our spending plan for the next school year. That all culminated in the development of a preliminary budget. So preliminary budget means it is then sent to Bergen County, to the Office of Education. Then the county will review our budget and approve it. That was done. A legal ad is placed in the newspapers. Our ad ran on Friday of last week. What I can tell you is that the final budget submission that you see here, the plan, does not differ in terms of numbers, you know, the bottom line from what we had proposed. And there were also conversations at several board meetings about components of the budget. So I'll be going through this along with our business administrator and assistant business administrator. And we'll start with an overview of the budget. Now, a budget needs to be balanced. It's like a balanced scale, if you can think of a sense of a visual in your mind. You'll notice as we get to the bottom of the page that our revenues and expenditures need to match. We need to match by law, and it's just like a household budget. You can't be spending more than you're taking in. And so if you look at, well, maybe my house, I've been working with my wife on this for years. Not too much success. Our biggest source of revenue is the local tax levy, and that is the case in almost every district in the state of New Jersey. You know that school finance in New Jersey is a very, very controversial issue. No governor, since I've been the superintendent of schools in New Jersey, 25 or so years, has been able to really solve that dilemma. It's involved the executive branch of government, the courts. New Jersey still has had several what are called Abbott decisions, and the legislature has developed plans to try to have some sense of equity so that all children, no matter where you live, have some kind of equal access to education. Despite all of that, in most communities, the local tax levy is where most revenue comes from. And that's the source of controversy. And you know that in Governor Christie's administration, there was a big push the last few months to look at a new formula. Right now, that's kind of in limbo. But our state aid, almost $4 million, $3.9 million. And we have different categories of aid. These are called categorical aid. We have equalization aid. You'll notice that our biggest source of state aid comes from special education categorical aid. We have a significant number of special ed students. Don't get too excited about that number because New Jersey historically underfunds special education, and so does the state of New Jersey. Probably pays about 17% of the cost of it. Security aid is a part of the budget. We'll talk later about some of the security enhancements that we're moving forward with. Transportation aid, extraordinary aid, charter school host aid, and professional learning communities. So other revenues that we have are the fund balance. What that means is that the Board of Education reduces the tax impact by using some of our funds to apply. Special ed tuition and transportation, and you can read it all there. So I wanted to see whether you want to add anything on the aid.
I think I just wanted to remind everybody that our state aid has been flat over the past several years, so we have not received an increase. Although this year we did get a slight increase, we received a decrease in our debt service aid, so it ended up being a wash for state aid.
And then sorry, Ron.
Just the professional learning community, what is that? Is that they give aid towards doing professional learning stuff with the teachers? Is that what that's for?
Yeah, it's a component of the state aid. This is a recent.
I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah, they have, like, the park readiness is one, and the professional learning, those are two that were developed last year, but of course, it just reduced it from another category and put it in there.
Anything else on the revenue side? And then on the expenditure side, you'll see that our biggest cost always in all districts is employee salary and benefits, which are the first three categories. And as you look at this, professional and tech services, purchase services, supplies, textbooks, utilities, grants, and capital reserve, debt services payment on current debt that the district has from former referendums. And the balance is, of course, the revenue side. Any comments about expenditures?
We tried to put the bottom half so that it would match the revenues along with the expenditures, so you'll see our grants. It's the $1.4 million that's restricted federal and state grants, so it's exactly what we get is what we spend and no more. Our capital reserves, this includes the deposit that we're budgeting for this year to go into the capital reserves account. This is the first year that we've done that based on feedback from the last preliminary budget meeting. And I think when you look at it in the next page, review the pie chart, you'll see just how significant where the expenditures and the revenues are and how they kind of look in a percentage basis.
And as Brooke said, so you have a pie chart that shows you the revenue side of it. We try to be as aggressive as possible in pursuing grants. SEMI, if you don't know what that is, a Special Education Medicaid Initiative. Extraordinary state aid can vary from year to year, but 87% of the budget is funded by the taxpayers share. And then you have a corresponding pie chart. So it's the exact same information, just presented in a different format for those of you that are visuals. You'll see again the most significant components, the certificated and non-certificated salaries, and then employee benefits. So the next sheet is important because it really highlights what's in the budget. You know, budget is obviously a spending plan, but the next component of that should be always a plan for what? What does this provide to Fair Lawn students and for the residents of our community? So all of our existing staff and programs are maintained in this budget. So that fully funds that. I think some of you probably, you pick up your daily newspapers and you'll see that in many other communities there are full-fledged nightmares going on. Been featured on, I was watching the New Jersey news today, some horror stories in other districts. We're in good shape because of the guidance of the Board of Education and the leadership under Joanne. We have built solid budgets over a number of years. We obviously budget in a forward-thinking way, and hopefully we'll not see ourselves in the newspapers in positions as some of the other districts that are laying off hundreds of staff members. This reflects, the next bullet is important for me. We have included additional teaching staff and support staff. So probably, well, not probably, definitely, our biggest issue right now is increased enrollment. So this budget reflects various components of how the Board of Education has decided to deal with our increased enrollment. One of those strategies includes the additional teaching staff and support staff. So the budget includes 3 new teachers. What that means is definitely one of those teachers for Radburn, 1 for Milnes. One I have not determined yet, but most likely will be going to Warren Point because Warren Point is growing and is soon catching up with Milnes and Radburn in terms of student population. We have a science specialist involved. It's something that we've been trying to do for years. As you know, New Jersey is going through, as other states, next generation science standards. We're working on that very, very well. And we believe that we'll be in even better shape when we have a specialist in that field. Security officers. I mentioned at our preliminary budget hearing that I've been working with the Fair Lawn Police since September in security enhancements for our district. So one of the new laws that was signed into law by Governor Christie creates a new category of police officers, and we will be working on a shared service agreement with the municipality to employ 2 police officers. These are retired officers, one at each of our middle schools. We think that that's a significant need. Those are both big buildings. Our cost will only be around $60,000. The municipality will pick up the other component of it. The budget includes a homeless liaison. We're excited about that because we have a number of homeless students, and there is a funding source known as McKinney-Vento that we believe if we had a specialist in this field, that we could tap into additional federal funds and perhaps deliver more services. Right now, the services for our homeless students are being paid for directly out of the general fund. School security, I mentioned the 2 officers. We also have worked with the police department about security cameras. So right now, our security cameras in the building are linked to the Fair Lawn Police. We have built into this and have worked with our Teachers Association to include more security cameras. So we will be putting cameras in large group instructional and other areas after. They'll be there obviously during the day, but they'll turn on after school. So what does that mean from a practical point of view? If there's a play at the high school auditorium, when you could have 1,000 people in there, you could have 700 people at a basketball game, any large group area. Cafeterias, all-purpose rooms at the elementary school will have security cameras. That's going to be very, very helpful to us, and our cameras here are linked to the police department on monitors. So they record for the large group sections. The large group cameras will turn on after the end of the school day. The purpose is not to observe teachers. It's to ensure that in large group areas, such as those that I mentioned, media centers as well, we know what's happening after school. May I ask you a question? Yes.
Do the police department have the power to turn those, if say, God forbid, there was an incident at one of the schools, like, say, in the media center at the high school, those cameras are off, but is there a way to turn them on?
Well, they'd be automatically turned on. So we worked with our tech people in Jack Ma so that when school dismisses.
No, I mean during the day, something
during the
happens,
day.
something happens.
I don't know, that's a good question. I'll follow up with our tech people as well, whether they can turn them on demand kind of thing. No, that would give us, that would be an additional enhancement. Everyone knows that, I say this with a smile, that New Jersey no longer uses the Common Core. Instead, we use the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, which are basically the same thing. But we will continue to work on those. PARC, DLM, Access, New Jersey, ASK, all of our testing. I mentioned about the science. This also funds our Teach New Jersey Law and Achieve NJ, so our evaluation system is all done electronically here in Fair Lawn. We have planned for the summer some big facility projects, a generator for Memorial, ceilings and lighting upgrades, and floor stabilization. And then one of the things that had been discussed at several community meetings about 2-3 months ago, this will make a deposit into capital reserve that we can use for facility projects. Anything you want to add?
I have a question.
Yes. Sure.
The police officer in the shared service agreement, whose employee is it?
This would be a municipal employee, not ours. And then the tax increases. So the Department of Education is allowing us to take an enrollment adjustment. An enrollment adjustment means that our enrollment has increased so much that $2.4 million of an adjustment will be made in this budget. That allows us to spend that much money to fund it. And then we have another adjustment called the healthcare adjustment. So we have a total tax levy increase. We are using a bank cap. So the bottom line is, for an average house in the community, which is a $327,000 house, the increase is $20.40 per month.
I just wanted to
And-
clarify, we are saving the bank.
Saving, I'm sorry,
Bank
saving the
cap.
bank cap.
What's the healthcare adjustment?
You want to explain how healthcare adjustment works?
Sure, so when we enter all the data into the software that goes to the Department of Education, when they see an increase in healthcare, they basically allow us over a certain percentage. So this year, it was anything over an 8.6% increase. They allowed us to put an adjustment. It's an automatic calculation that happens in the software, and it basically shows how high the increases are for our state health benefits, that it exceeded that amount.
The healthcare for whom?
All the
Employees.
All the
Oh,
employees,
employees.
yeah.
The following sheet, page 6, gives you a history of what the monthly increases have been on the average home and fair one over, going back to 2005 and 2006. And then the final page, our business department was able to do some research on how do we compare to others in Bergen County. And you'll see that compared to, we're on the lower spending side in terms, and the lower tax side of the county, with the typical tax on a home at a little bit over $10,000 in Fairlawn. So, questions, comments from the board? Yeah.
Just some comments, no real questions. You know, I had a nice long talk with the VA and assistant VA today, and I have to admit, I was very on the fence about this budget. It's a tough pill for all of us. It's a tough pill to swallow, raising taxes this amount and then facing your neighbors and the people who elected you. But again, after a good long talk, and I appreciate like the hour or so you spent with me on the phone this morning, it's evident and it's clear that this budget is necessary to maintain our identity as a solid and excellent school district. And it's necessary to make sure that all our children are well cared for, with an example being all the paras we have to hire for the explosion in numbers and the extra teachers that Dr. Blesses had mentioned earlier. To be able to keep up with this and keep it as low as it is, I think that they've done an extraordinary job doing that. And I do this saying that I have a little discomfort raising this kind of money from people, but duty is to students. And I think, especially after that conversation, it's more clear than ever, not that it wasn't clear before, that, you know, their eye was on the ball when it came to that. So a thank you to you for your hard work. I know this probably was an extraordinary job, and I wish we had the power just to give you a vacation right now, because Lord knows you probably need one. But I'm sure there'll be something new tomorrow for you to deal with. So thank you, and again, I really appreciate the conversation and that you took the time, and that you took the time explaining everything. It gives confidence that you feel comfortable with what you're doing, and that shows. So
Thank you.
tough pill, but gotta do this.
No, Jeff beat me to what I was going to say.
Sorry.
I was originally voted against the preliminary budget because for me it was unclear as to where all these monies were going to be directed. But after the dissemination of the material that you gave us, as well as the documentation that you presented tonight, I can't go against it, and I will be voting in the affirmative. And I too want to thank Joanne and Brooke, as well as the team that worked behind this in order to put the budget together.
We all appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mike?
First of all, Brooke, thank you.
Thanks.
Joanne, thank you for every other year. But it's obvious to me that we are in very, very good shape with Brooks taking the helm at the end of the year. We're gonna miss Joanne greatly.
You're doing great.
I think in the whole budget process, and I say this every year for the past, now we must be doing it going on 5-6 years, where we break down budget meetings, every committee. The board, every committee of the board meets with the administrators in charge of that part of the budget, and we're able to share each other's, our opinions to you guys, and you're able to share your vision to us. And I think that work has worked out tremendously for the past, it's gotta be 5 or 6 years now. I think that makes me understand the budget so much more. So you know, between what we're going through with the increased enrollment this year, and all the other challenges that have come up, I feel that I did have enough information on this budget to, you know, I pay the same taxes as everyone else. And my concern is that the children of Fairlawn get as good an education as we could give them. And yes, I'm concerned about the cost of education, but my initial concern is the kids of Fairlawn. So I support the budget. I had my questions answered. There has been back and forth between things that I was concerned about and things. So great job by the entire administrative team, and thank you. And I will be supporting the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron?
Yeah, well, I thank you, Joe. I've talked to you the last couple of days a lot. But no, I think what's most impressive is what you said, Ernie. I've been watching the news and reading the newspaper, and there's a lot of districts that are it's unbelievable what they're gonna go through. Budget's failing, teachers losing jobs, programs being cut. And the thing I found amazing since I've been on the board, even before I was on the board, when I was with Flair and everything else, is how this district continually maintains all our programs and the people who take care of our children, and with minimal damage to the community. And you know, when you look at this, the sheet, it was like for 1 year, and you know, it goes back to the one thing I'll say, like Mike said, I'm a taxpayer, but it goes back to the one thing I'll say when I was out there trying to get the budget passed, when I vote on it. For $20 a month, you're actually spending less than a cup of coffee every day. And I think every child's worth more than a cup of coffee. So, you know, that's the way I look at it. I break it down to that, and you know, like I said, it's a great job by the entire administrative team, because this is not an easy job to do. And we're continuing to improve our facilities, our programs, and keep hiring teachers, and that's, to me, is what this is all about. This is all in about the children. So I'm definitely supporting it.
Thanks, Ron. Elise?
I just want to say, like, you know, from the years that I've been here, and, you know, we're like, you know, 28th, you know, from the bottom in the county. That's kind of tied into what Ron said, because we kind of hover at the same spot, and I'm just noticing, like, there used to be big discrepancies, like people used to say, oh, Paramus, they have like hardly any taxes because they have all the big malls, but they're catching up to us to keep their programs, because it's getting harder and harder to do that. So you guys do an excellent job, you know, what everybody just iterated, I totally agree, but I just find that to be really interesting, because there's some towns on here that, you know, I can't look at every town and remember every town, but there's some that I watch because I know people that live there or something like that, and they're getting closer. You know, they used to be the bargain towns, and whether their schools have as many programs as our school has, or, you know, I'm not even going there, but just the amount of dollars that they're spending, they're all catching up, which I just think is kind of interesting, because if you look at this list a few years ago, you know, there were quite a few, you know, that are, you know, beneath us, but they were way, you know, there were a few $1,000s less, and now they're all catching up.
Gap
So,
is closing.
yeah, the gap is closing. So, pretty amazing what we do here.
Anybody else?
Again, I'm going to mention one thing.
Yes.
Sorry. Speaking also as our legislative rep to our assembly people and senator in the 38th district. I did reach out to them. As I mentioned, this is tough pill, and I wouldn't say I lashed out, but I would say that I was chewing their ear pretty good, because, and it's just something that I would recommend people do. This is really has to do with, and this is something we talked about, is the formula that dictates how much Fair Lawn gets compared to what other cities are getting. It really is unfair to us. It puts an extraordinary burden on citizens where it's not as difficult for people in other towns. So I would, especially in this election year for the legislator, I would encourage everyone to be involved and to maybe get in touch with their legislators and let them know how it impacts you and be involved on that level. Should you need any of their information, I'd be happy to provide it for you, although of course it's, just on the internet also. So I would encourage you to go out of your way to do that, write a letter or call them up.
Thank you.
Right, yeah.
Any members of the audience have any questions on the budget presentation? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna head into
Can I
the,
just make one
Oh, yeah.
announcement?
Oh,
This is
sure,
not-
sorry.
Not a presentation, I know I've taken an hour here, but I'm forecasting next month, and we have a board meeting on the 18th. At that meeting, our tradition is to honor teachers of the year, and then also employees with 25 years of service. I've had some conversations about maybe expanding the scope of that so that we can honor students, individual students, as well as student groups. I mean, I've been in a number of pretty big districts prior to my term here in Fair Lawn, but our students are second to none. And we have had students from our high school and win national awards, and I just thought maybe we can do something where we combine all of this. But if we did that, that means that's going to be a pretty long meeting. So just think about maybe a format that we can chat about in which we do this honoring of people who deserve the recognition. Might need another meeting, but I really would like to do something with kids and groups of kids. So just a thought, sorry.
it's okay, no, that's a good idea. All right, can't be
We
wrong.
start the meeting earlier then. That's the long one.
Could be a marathon.
Okay. All right, now on to the agenda. B1, approval of proposed 17-18 budget. S1, no items. S2, school violence and HIB reports, public hearings. E1, attendance at conference conventions workshops. E2, approval of extracurricular trips. E3, no items. E4, approval of bedside home instruction. E5, no items. E6, grants and entitlements. E7, no items. E8, summer programs, workshops, summer school. E9, approval of attendance at various Bergen County academies, no items. E10, no items. P1, approval of day-to-day substitutes and bedside home instruction. P2, approval of retirement of personnel. P3, approval of resignation of personnel. P4, approval of appointment of personnel. P5, approval amendment of leave of absence without pay. P6, approval of change in assignment of personnel. P7, salary adjustment to higher degree status, median qualification. P8 and P9, no items. P10, approval of fall winter sports Schedule C. P11, no items. P12, approval of extra instructional time, certificated personnel. P13, approval of course offerings and faculties, community school. P14, no items. P15, approval of rescission of leave of absence without pay. P16, extended leave of absence without pay, child rearing. P17, return of certificated personnel from child rearing leave. P18, approval to amend scheduled positions D, high school, 16-17. P19, termination of employment of non-certificated personnel. P20, approval of promotion of secretary of personnel. Can I have a motion for items B1 to P20?
Do we not, I'm sorry, do we not vote on P19 yet until we talk later?
Well, something was sent home. Do you want to hold it till later? We can do that. We'll hold it till later. Something got sent home, didn't it?
Yeah.
But if you want to discuss it, we'll hold it and go back into closed session.
It was an email.
Which one were you?
P19, the non-certificated personnel.
I'll read it. Slowly. Who's that email?
Carol.
Yeah, Carol, I'll be here.
Exactly.
Okay. Did we get a second?
Second.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Board members, while Jeff is with you, any questions or comments on any of these items? Mary?
A reminder, we have to, we can't vote on ourselves for the convention.
Which one is that again? That was earlier, right?
Five.
It's E1B.
E1B, okay. Yes, thank you, Mary. Good point. We all get up in jail. Anybody else?
So much money for all the work we do.
Any members of the audience?
Oh,
have-
I remember reading it.
Okay.
Like, come on.
I've been proctoring Clark all week, so you know, my brain's
All right,
all, you know.
B1 to P20, any members of the audience, questions or comments on those items? Yes. State your name, please, Mel.
My name is Mel Dershauer. I just wanted to comment on P4. P4, Section C.
Okay,
I'm very excited to welcome Dr. Hesney back to the district. I think that's great news. I'm not familiar with the first one, but I just want to state very happy to see Dr. Hesney come back.
that's all we.
Can I just jump
Yeah,
in and
yes,
respond?
you
So as you know, we hired Nick Norcia as our Assistant Superintendent in charge of Student Services recently. Nick was involved in the search for the supervisors, but I just quickly want to give you some idea of the very fine people that we hired, that we are about to hire. I'm very excited about this special education leadership team. Nick, as you know, comes to us with a lot of experience. Camille DeFranco is currently the Director of Special Education in Eldon and Manchester Regional, and is a national expert in the field of autism, is a BCBA, has done work going as a consultant going into other districts and making recommendations about autism in particular and special education programs. With Jonathan Hesney, I just met for the first time. I know he was in the district. He is the supervisor of special education at West Milford High School. So we really have, I think, formed a tremendous team. I want to thank my administrative colleagues, Lisa for putting together the whole search. But it is, I could not be more happy with the folks that we have here. We're getting significant positive feedback from parents and staff. And I think that we will take our very, very fine program that we have and make it even better. And I think we'll do that in a more efficient way as well.
Thank you, Ernie. I think the board is behind you 100% on this. You like the direction you pointed us in and are going in, and very happy with how we're handling this.
Can I just follow up my
Yes,
question?
you may.
Sorry. So, given her BCBA and all of the experience that you said that she brings to the autism field, she's going to be more towards like the lower grade, and then Dr. Hesney will be more of the transitional upper grade, or we're not, no?
Have you been talking to anybody? Or you're just taking random guesses?
Dale's just trying to figure it out.
This is just her figuring it out.
Figuring it out.
No,
I
well,
imagine
Good job.
that many of the detailed decisions will come when the three begin to work together. But I believe in putting people in their positions of strength, and Camille is an expert in autism. And Jonathan has significant secondary experience now, having been at West Milford. And so we have a division that we propose to both candidates that they're very excited about. There could be some tweaking because they still need to come together. Also, I'd like to be, we'll be introducing our new folks to the special ed community May
17.
7th. So we're excited about that.
Very excited.
Anything else, Mel, on this?
Um,
Well, I mean, let's get it out of the way now.
No, I don't believe so. I just,
Okay.
So, Dr. DeFranco or Mrs. DeFranco? Because I see she served on the child study team as a school psychologist.
Mrs.
She's a Mrs.
And Jonathan Hesney has his doctorate.
Any other
Very
members of the
exciting
audience?
stuff. I'll leave now.
Roll call, please.
But we have so much more.
Ms. Quackenbush,
Hey, if she wasn't here, he would be.
Mr. Spindell,
Yep. It's abstain on
Oh,
E1B. I'm gonna make that assumption for everybody. Okay,
Exemption on E1B, my name.
yep. Okay, Mr. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Mrs. Piella,
Yes.
Oh, abstention
yeah.
on,
okay.
Yes, exemption on E1.
Mr. Klein,
Abstain on E1B, my name, everything else, yes.
Mrs. Franco,
Yes.
Mr. Barbarulo,
Yes.
yep. Mrs. Wallace,
Yes, abstain on me.
Mr. Banta.
Yes, abstain on me also. Okay, thank you. SU1, approval of tuition transportation to special schools providing regular special education. SE2, approval of 192, 193 services agreement with Bergen County Special Services to non-public schools. SE3, approval of integrated early childhood education preschool program for 17-18. SE4, approval of extended school year. SE5, approval of bedside home instruction for classified students. F1, approval of policies. F2, approval of school use. F3, approval of discards. F4, approval of acceptance of gifts. F5, approval of bills payable payroll. F6, approval of bills payable. F7, approval of board secretary report. F8, approval of board treasurer's report. F9, approval of transfers. F10, no items. F11, approval of contracts, consortiums, cooperatives. F12, purchases. F13, other business. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Members of the, Ron?
Well, F4, it is with great pleasure to see that Radford is gonna get their playground and again, so check. With everything going on at the start, and it's gonna be one of the happiest days to see those children play on that field. The board and Radford working together, along with everybody else, I think it's very nice to see how everything went well.
I agree 100%. Radford PTA did a fantastic
They did a
job.
fantastic job.
They're gonna continue to do a fantastic job. They're having another run with it. This weekend? or
This weekend,
next
they're
weekend?
another run, yeah, so they're gonna continue to do it, so I just think that's great, it really is.
Mary?
Yes, thank you to the Hunter Group for the computer monitors, and also to Miss Joanne Smith for drum set. Very nice. And I understand that the check from the Radburn PTA is in addition to the first check, which was
35,000.
35,000.
So they're just short of 10,000 of their goal, around 10,000.
And that's before the run, so I
Right.
mean,
Right.
that's really, it is absolutely amazing amount of money, so, okay.
But it also makes me happy because I did promise one of my customers' sons, he said, you will get a program.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good thing you could keep that
So
promise.
it's nice to know
The
that.
Seinfeld episode where somebody promised that he did 2 home runs. Ron would've been like it.
Yeah, I'll be out there building a playground.
Yeah.
Where are they building it on the where in the Radford?
It's like
They
right
just
behind the
made-
fourth
where
grade
they live.
doors.
Yeah,
No, I, no, but like,
It's not exact, I mean, it's like,
Howard.
it's right off the Howard, back, farther, like behind the doors, like, you'll,
where there's like a sort of
flat
park,
land.
got you on that one, but like
Yeah,
where
no.
the parking spaces are?
No, a little bit,
Not taking away parking.
not taking any parking space away, it's gonna be back and closer to the school. Yeah,
Oh, on the grass area?
yeah.
Yeah. Any other board members?
Cause that Bolton thing, it's
All right,
kinda old.
let me just finish the board and then, Mike.
Obviously, you know, that the playground was such a big deal, and thank you to the New Jersey Historical Society, which was the last hurdle after, after all the new applications and everything else. It had to be approved by the New Jersey Historical Society, which they did a couple of weeks ago, apparently. I was looking at, I just have to find the, next weekend is the Relay for Life, and we're approving the use of the field for the American Cancer Society Relay for Life. And that was a long time planning, and I want to give credit to the people that have been planning it from the high school and the community. It's going to be a really, really nice event for our school and our community, and the school and the community coming together. So anyone that's available that weekend, I'm sure they'd love to have us. That was actually F2C. So congratulations that they got it together, and hopefully it'll be a nice weekend.
Piggybacking on that, I know that John Cosgrove really worked hard to get this put together, and he was very appreciative of us, allowing them to use the facilities and donating custodians. So John was very happy about that. Any other board members? Any members of the audience on any of these items? In the back, yes. Emily, just state your name for the record.
Emily Greenfield Cone. F1, I just want to clear, maybe this is a procedural question. Is that the second reading of the South Board policy, correct?
Yes, it is.
So voting on this means what?
Policy will be in effect.
So where is the final reading of the policy?
We don't actually read it. It's, what?
It's on the website.
It's on the website. I don't actually sit there and read it word for word.
Because I had sent some questions, like comments of clarification on the way the policy was worded, and never got a response to that.
No, we didn't make any changes.
Okay. There was some, so just to let other board members know, as a comment from the public, there were some ambiguities in the language about discrepancies about whether it applies to elementary schools or middle schools, just some definitional things about like established residency, what exactly does that mean? I'm just wondering from a legal perspective in particular, if there's any concerns about tightening up the language just to make sure it's fully clear what the intention of policy is so it doesn't get misinterpreted or cause issues.
Well, I think the policy is clear in that if you moved into the district before it takes effect July 1st, your child will go to your neighborhood school. If you move in afterwards, there's a possibility that your child may not go to that school.
Yeah, I understand what the intention is, but there was several of us who took some time to have questions of clarification, so the fact that there's no response to say that those comments were processed, or like why there was a decision just to not respond at all. I'm just, for the record, just saying.
Well, you had made some comments and you wanted some changes. If I remember correctly, you were looking for us to add or subtract language. So the policy is as it's written, and everybody is clear. The changes that we made from the original policy are embodied into the current policy. I don't think it's ambiguous at all.
Okay, there was nothing substantive on the feedback I gave to change my understanding and intention. I think we agree on that. It's just, if someone who wasn't at that marked meeting or who isn't sitting on this board a year and a half from now just reads the policy and understands it, and others saw some opportunity for written clarification, but
What do you see that's unclear? I'm just curious. I mean, I apologize if I didn't respond back, because I know I was copied on that, but I don't understand what you see, like Gene just said. It basically is that as of July 1st, you move here, there's a possibility you might not go there. Again, remember something, this is not locked in forever. This is what we said for 2 years, but what is unclear, I don't understand.
yeah, I mean, I don't have my laptop in front of me to look at it exactly.
Okay,
but
but
the two things that come to mind, like, and there were some other opportunities for further clarification, but the one thing in particular was to make it clear that this is for elementary schools, not for middle schools. I think there was still a lingering question of maybe if there was a sibling at middle school
That's
versus
in the policy.
elementary. It just, the language itself, I know you've discussed all these issues, but I'm just saying the language in the policy itself, there were some opportunities for tightening, but if this board is comfortable that the language is good enough as it stands, I can be at peace with that.
Yeah, I don't really,
Mike?
to be honest with you, Emily, I don't, as we all discussed at the meetings and everything else, I don't really feel there's any discrepancies, and to be honest with you, we're not looking to split families up or anything else. So there's other issues that we've also started to deal with the other night at the work session, you were here, regarding, if we do expansions. Like Dr. Pelesta said, if we did go to one central location for kindergarten, do staggered times, because we understand parents can't do places at once, so.
I'm not here to argue anything.
No, I didn't say you're arguing, I'm
Okay.
just trying to explain to you, so if somebody does move in and has, doesn't understand something, all they have to do is always ask, and then we can explain it to them, so. No.
Anything else, Emily?
Uh,
I saw a hand over here. No?
Me, again, sorry.
Well, Mel, you gotta say your name again.
No, still no Joe Shower. SC3, the approval of the integrated early childhood preschool program. Enrollment is limited and based on a lottery system. Do we know how limited? Like, do we have a number in mind, or? Only because that's been asked, and the answer I come back with is I'm not sure. So,
Anything? Look, we have a cap?
The intent of it
Oh,
is,
yeah. Depends on that.
that it's not, I mean, if we get more than the capacity, we, in the motion, built in the concept that we can shut it down. So a preschool handicap class is going to be limited by the state code for preschool handicap students. What that is offhand, I can't tell you. Now, I can also get that information.
okay.
I have a question.
You just state your name for the tape.
Yeah, Steve Brown, still Steve Brown.
It was funny when she said it, not so much.
That'll be fine. Nick, I don't know if this applies to the policy, but on the information rate, you give the school, the enrollment numbers.
Right.
Do you have the projected enrollment for the 2017 for the incoming class? Because I mean, I can subtract all this on the classes that are moving up. I'm just interested to know what's coming in. Do you have that? Those numbers?
Well, yes and no. So the demographer is projecting 321 students spread out over 5 years.
Yeah.
What we do not have are the enrollments for,
You don't have a breakdown of that?
no.
Oh, okay.
We do not have the projections for September because we're still enrolling students. So we're just about to finish with kindergarten. What does occur in this community is it appears that we pick up even after the school year ends a significant number in the summer. So last summer, I believe the number was over 200 that were not anticipated, and that is really what created this immediate issue that we're dealing with. But overall, it's 321 over 5 years. That includes the 33 who would be in attendance at the Radburn development that you see under construction.
Landmark on Plaza.
Landmark,
Yeah.
landmark. But it's not broken down on that report, grade level by grade level. I do have a projected breakdown, but that I'd have to find for you.
Oh, okay. I have another question, but I can't figure it out. Thank you.
You want me to take somebody else and come back in?
Please do.
Okay.
Emily Ann here. So I just want to ask about the integrated preschool. So, I guess my question is that separate from the current preschool program that the community school runs?
Yes.
Okay.
So an integrated preschool would include opportunities for students who are 4- and 5-year-old to have special education students and general education students in the same setting. The preschool handicap class itself is only for preschool handicapped students. And there are parents who like to have their children in a setting in which there are special ed and non-special ed kids together.
And then there's a third class that's, the community schools preschool program that's not integrated with special ed, it's just general preschool education, right, I'm understanding that correctly?
It's really childcare.
It's childcare.
They do learn.
I remember my question.
Okay, go ahead.
The policy, if I remember correctly, regarding the saltwater policy, says that if students are in the district and move out, they can still attend district schools for that year, and if they come in, obviously, why do you allow students that move out of the district to still attend schools in the district?
It depends on when they move. High school students, if they're here on the first day of school and they're a senior, they can finish their career here.
Right.
Elementary school, is it 90 days? And elementary school is here for the day 89. They got 89 days left, they can finish, but if it's more than that, they can't.
89 days left?
Yeah, so if there's 180 days in the school year,
Okay.
yeah, counting back from June. So if there's 89 school days left and the kid moves out then, they can stay. But if there's 91, they can't.
Oh, okay.
So it's a 90-day cutoff. If they're here half the year, they can finish. If they're not here half the year, then they can't.
Okay.
Except for seniors.
Right, that just wasn't clear, and I just was.
And that is not a part of SOP orders.
Yeah, that's a
That was a
separate
policy, an existing policy here in Fairlawn in regards to the seniors and in regards to families that move out of the community after the trigger date.
Oh, I understand.
That was in place before we even started to talk about SOP orders.
Oh, okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Did I see another hand over there? Oh, Elise, I knew it said.
I was just thinking about the kindergarten enrollments, because when we stopped half-day kindergarten, we got a big influx of students that came back to do first grade because they weren't privately for
Right.
half-day kindergarten.
There's always 50 to
So
75
I was
kids
just
there.
thinking that maybe, because now the kindergarten numbers will be whatever they are, as opposed to having an influx possibly of students coming. So you might, like, kindergarten classes might be bigger, but you might not get that big bump. Because next year, we already have those kids.
I'm hoping
in
for
this-
that.
Right, I'm just curious, like, how that's gonna pan out, because we've changed the kindergarten.
Right.
So it might not, you know, you might
The
miss some of that, where
the
then people
second
brought
year
people
of
back
full-day
in.
kindergarten will make a difference because,
But, yeah.
you know, we may not be as shocked as.
Right, that's what I was kind
Right.
of just thinking about that when you were talking about it.
So
It might
you're right.
actually not be as tremendous, that influx at the very beginning of the year, because those kids are already here.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you voting on what? Before and after care?
Yes.
And then when will that registration process be available through your website?
When can we start registering for before and after care for September?
Yeah.
Maybe already.
Well, they do have registration for 2016-2017 school year, but when I called that office, they said that registration wouldn't be available until these rates were approved.
So I mean, as soon as it's gonna be approved tonight, I would say.
Yeah, maybe next
Well,
week.
maybe
we can-
tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
They may be waiting just for that.
Oh, okay, I
Pick
appreciate
it
it,
up.
thanks.
Yeah, I would check back with them tomorrow.
I'll just
now
check the
that it's-
website
Okay.
daily.
No?
Mildred Shower, just
There's a
SE4.
limit on questions.
Am I there? Because I have more, the next section I'm gonna have another one.
Pretty much, okay.
The Melvin.
SE4, do we know who the teachers in charge are gonna be for both high school and, do we have that info yet, or?
No, they will be on the next agenda.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, can I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Quackenbush.
Yes.
Mr. Stindown.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Mrs. Piella.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Mrs. Frankel.
Yes.
Mr. Barbarolo.
Yes.
Mrs. Wallace.
Yes.
Mr. Gander.
Yes. All right, now we're going to open a meeting up to public for questions and comments about any issue that you'd like to ask or talk about. Emily?
Emily, yeah, I'd like to ask for updates on two former items of business. So one is on the superintendent search, and the other is on the work of the Hard Borders Committee.
Okay, superintendent search is ongoing. And at this time, we've not identified candidate that we will hire, but we'll be continuing the search. Hard Borders Committee is meeting
May 9th. May 9th.
May 9th.
Is that a public meeting or is that closed?
It's closed. It's closed meeting.
Okay. And will there be any minutes available, or like, to let the public know, any report back?
There will be a report when the committee, after the committee meets, there'll be a report to the board at a public meeting.
Okay. At like the May 19th meeting, or not necessarily? Whatever.
Yeah, I think we probably have some, maybe not final, but we'll have some update to give at the May 18th meeting. Any other members of the audience? Now to the board, Mary.
I understand that there is a special guest in the audience tonight that I would
I
like
was
to
gonna let Brooke do
meet.
that. No, you spoke Brooke's thunder.
I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce everybody to Mrs. Patricia Ratcliffe Lee. She is my replacement as Assistant Business Administrator. She's starting May 30th, so I'm really happy to be here. And I'm really excited for her to start.
Thank you, I'm looking forward to it greatly.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Pretty soon you get to sit up here and take part.
Yes, I'm thinking about that.
The chairs are way more comfortable.
Yes.
I thought about that especially.
Patricia, welcome. We're very glad to
Thank
have
you.
you. And if Brooke and Joanne like you, then you must be all right.
I could add one thing, today is National Autism Awareness, and we celebrated it here in Edison School. A wonderful occasion. There was a bake sale, and I walked in, and our friend Mel announced.
Mel who? Mel who?
Mel.
Dr. Palestis bought goodies, he could say anything right
Announced to
now.
all of the children, it's Dr. Palestis, and he likes cookies. And so it was, about $5 later.
And Dr. Palestis bought
But it
goodies.
Was there any
good.
baklava?
No baklava, we have to work on that.
Oh.
But it was very, 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 very nice.
What did we not Oh, yeah.
That's difficult to make.
I'm sure you can buy some somewhere.
Well, mine is all personal.
Okay, I just wanted to make an announcement. Now I will. Oh, no, okay. Our own lovely Joan Piella has earned 10 credits to receive her new board member certification from the New Jersey School Board. Congratulations, Joan. And I hope you have a letter, because I was writing.
Yes, I do.
Okay. 'Cause I wrote over this one. All right, board committee reports. Cindy.
Yeah, I don't have a board committee report, other than the fact that the special ed committee presentation has been canceled due to conflicts with the special ed committee. We're going to be in negotiations that night. But I just wanted to remind Place that you will be getting your budget presentation on that night.
Perfect.
The special ed committee will not be in attendance. And I also just wanted to say on a personal note, I just wanted to thank my fellow board members and my central office team for the love and support that they showed me in the passing of my mom. It's been a really bad time, and it's nice to know that there are people that rally around you. And I just wanted to publicly thank each and every one of you for the love and support. My mom did sit there several times watching me get sworn in and whatnot, and the void is huge. But I wanted to thank you guys.
You're welcome. Board members, committee reports, comments, questions? Joan.
We've been having real difficulty with student dialogue. It seems to be conflicting with a lot of things that are going on for kids. So I recommended to Marco that next year maybe we make a list of when the committee will be meeting the dialogue will be meeting every month, so that they can know that this is the date, so they try to plan things that aren't around that. Because this time, there's always a lot of things going on or changed and they can't make it.
Okay. So I saw this month was canceled.
Yes, they canceled like Monday.
Okay, so next month.
I told them already that it's going to be on the date.
Okay.
So
All right.
I think we had talked at student dialogue last year, Joan, and we wanted to make it known to them that they didn't have to actually piggyback it on the night of a board meeting. That if
Right.
we could sit down and come up with dates, the special, the student dialogue would certainly be willing to come, to work around the fact that, that it's on it doesn't have to be the night of the regular meeting. So if you would just bring that back.
That's why I said to Marco, to sit down in September,
AP tests start on Monday,
I know.
and the teachers voluntarily do 3-hour sessions of review. There was a couple of them tonight, the teachers, they have to plan it when they can do it, so a couple of those, we had there's
And the
also
mock trial
an
got,
open mic night, and there's a lot of kids up there
and
that.
they said the mock trial got moved too, something else, something's going
Yeah.
on. And I understand there's always a lot of things going on.
Now, we value the meeting,
Yes, we do too.
we do,
So
and
we
you guys
value
do,
it
and
very
the kids
much,
love
we
it,
value
so.
it very much. That's why I'm
We'll
trying to
figure
figure out
something out, yeah.
some way that we can, have it go on.
Mike?
Can we have an education committee meeting June 5th? And it's going to be, two of the topics are going to be a report on full-day kindergarten and a report on education resource.
What time?
June 5th, 7 o'clock, everybody's good?
We have a May filled up pretty quick.
Right?
Okay. All right, with you, Karen? Anything else? Mary?
Over the years, I've brought up a few times that it seems to me that it would really help all of these different things if there were one great master schedule where everything was plugged in from all schools, all board meetings, etc. And I just bring it up again because although it's been bantered around,
I never heard that.
although it's been bantered around back and forth, it really kind of never materialized, and we do find conflicts and things that we cannot go to because it's the night of this, and then there's that, and there's so many things. So it was just a thought, I'd like to bring it up again.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but I think we tried to keep it with board meetings, policy meetings, education committee, all the committee meetings are Monday or Thursday.
We're good, yes, no,
But-
not us.
And so I think when people are planning things that they want us to attend, we're gonna keep that in mind. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are open, Wednesdays the occasional.
Well, Wednesday,
Yeah, but, that doesn't mean as much as some of the other things. So, I don't know how you do a master
I don't
schedule
know either.
with all of the activities in all the schools and the board. I,
So many things
it's
go on in
tough,
schools.
but I don't know how you do it.
Ernie, have you ever been in a district that did it? Okay, there you go.
We spend all of our time with this meeting conflicts with this meeting, and it's difficult.
Okay, fine, it's
We
all
can't just have like
right.
an electronic master calendar, like on a Google Calendar, or one that people can subscribe to. And any individual building, there's a rep that controls their schedule for their building or for their.
Well, I don't know that any rep controls the entire schedule.
No, they will control their own, like if they have a meeting, they can put it in, it comes to everybody. And the board has access to seeing it, it's just. Right.
Well, don't we get dates don't we get dates
Yes.
of various activities?
Yeah, already sent it out.
Yeah.
But we don't, I don't know how many people put everything into their calendar, you know?
But like we,
Wait, hold on.
So we scheduled that, hidden in plain sight thing, and then we have a meeting on the night that is.
Yeah.
Which I really wanted to go to see that, and several people did, and we ended up scheduling, I forget what night it is, what you did for that.
May 11th.
Right.
No, that's May 15th.
Yeah, it's May 5th.
May 5th, yeah, that's a couple of committee meetings.
So that's- Right, but we scheduled the meeting,
Yeah, I think-
much to my chagrin, because I said,
I think we
I
should
didn't want to
maybe-
have the meeting that night.
No,
We
we're not
scheduled-
changing the meeting.
And we scheduled it
We're not
anyway.
changing it.
I got it, but
Okay.
I just,
What are those, what meetings are?
Personnel and buildings and grounds. Buildings and grounds is at 7, and personnel is at 7:30. But the 17th is negotiations, the 18th is the board meeting, 23rd is negotiations. I just don't see, you know, and this, we gotta have the personnel committee meeting, because I gotta get this stuff on for the 18th, so that we can send it to the county.
Personnel and buildings and grounds till that, the day before that Wednesday.
What?
Can we change it to that Wednesday, the day before?
It's a Monday.
Oh. Can we change it to the
Sunday?
Wednesday afterwards?
You're talking about
No.
May 17th?
No.
Yeah.
May 15th is a Monday.
Let me just ask a question. What time is it in?
7 o'clock.
I was gonna say, because I'm buildings and grounds, I can go.
You'll be done by 7:30.
Yeah, I'm saying I can go earlier too and move the other meeting up. I don't know what you guys have to do.
The personnel committee meeting is gonna be long. And it has to be done so we can put stuff on for the 18th to be approved, so we can send it to the county. So, I understand the hidden in plain sight thing, but we don't have, there's no other time to do it. We already adjourned at once, so.
What are we doing on May?
Yeah, 8th is the Columbia
No,
dinner.
I'm just saying, I thought we'd, since, yeah.
The 3rd is negotiations, the 9th is the hard bodies committee, the 11th,
What's the 11th?
work session, approved. 15th is buildings and grounds and personnel, 17th is negotiations, the 18th is multi-board meeting. I mean, May, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 meetings in May.
How about that week from the 8th to the 12th, there's no dates on it?
You're not doing this.
The 9th is hard borders. May 8th is the Columbia dinner. The 11th is the work session. I've said that, but people keep trying to find solutions, which I haven't seen, so.
Yeah, but I almost think I want to not attend the committee meetings and go to Netflix then.
Listen, you guys got to do what you think is right. I'm not gonna hold it against somebody who doesn't go to a meeting because they have something else that they like to go to. That's fine. I don't run your schedules. You guys do what you think you have to do. That's fine with me, and I don't think anybody's gonna hold it against anybody. So, you know, look, the personnel committee meeting, I just can't do it, because we have to have it done by the 18th. It's gotta be ready, we gotta have the meeting, then we got an 18th, we've gotta vote on stuff so we can send it to the county. Simple as that. Okay. Yeah, shared service is not gonna work for the borough, so you guys can talk to whoever over there and figure out another date sometime. Looks like it's gonna be the end of May or maybe in June. Yeah, Ron couldn't, not Ron. You can't make it and Kurt can't make it. Okay. Well, it's just gonna be Joanne and me, so it's not gonna be much of a meeting.
I'll be done here tomorrow.
Jeff?
I just have a small request from the superintendent in reference to the elementary school, what times that they all do things. I've had a couple parents speak to me about their dismay of not being able to go to some of their children's things while parents from other schools have night events for their night events for their kids, and their moving up ceremonies and their concerts, and especially the folks that have, you know, both parents working, they're unable to see their kids in the schools that don't run nighttime events. So I'm just seeing if that could be looked into, and I've made this request before you, that each school is kind of on the same page in terms of those ceremonies, so no one's penalized for going to work or has to take a day off work. I know that I was told in the past that it was a contractual issue, but I'm not so sure that makes sense, being that some schools do it and some schools don't do it. So it would be nice if all parents had the same opportunity to see their children at those, you know, because now I feel for that, because I was in a school where they didn't have a night event till she was in 5th grade. I saw her at one thing. And as we all know as parents, that time is really fleeting, and to miss those things, It's just not really.
The various moving up ceremonies I distributed to the board, and they've
Yes.
already been locked in. I'm trying to brainstorm with the principals about a long-term solution. There are labor issues, sometimes employees participate in events that are voluntary, and sometimes they will not participate in voluntary events. So we'll talk about it at an administrative level.
I gotta say, I agree with Jeff on this, because I'm not a big fan of daytime moving up ceremonies and all that kind of, listen, if it's a play or something, I understand. Moving up ceremony and a few other things, I think that we gotta make a better effort trying to do it at night, because there's a lot of two-family, or two-parent working families. So, yeah, I know this year we're locked in, it's April, we're not changing anything now, but for next year, see if we can do something. Mike?
I forgot, in the whole conversation about dates, I forgot, going back to the calendar thing. I don't want a calendar, a central calendar to necessarily cancel meetings, like, and work around, meetings as much as to have a central calendar. What would be, or maybe you could, brainstorm or look into the fact we pay webmasters a nice stipend in every school. So what would be that difficult for them to put events on a monthly calendar that just is available to everybody in the district? I'm not talking about cancel events, because this district is much too large, and there's much too many there's always going to be a conflict in dates. No matter what you did, there's going to be conflicts in dates.
So let me see, what do we want on this calendar? What are we asking the administration to put on the calendar?
Basically,
Everything.
any special events. Yeah. I'm not talking about like local.
We have that. I mean, we have that at the high school, we have it on our calendar, we have an activities calendar, we have a school calendar.
Right, so what we're really looking for is that to expand to the district.
Yeah, it doesn't, I don't know how you would do that. Ours would take up the whole district's.
I agree with everybody's saying, but I guess, if you do something like that, you're gonna take this calendar out, and basically, the whole month's gonna have something on every month.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, so like, what is the purpose, is that like, do we say, well, I agree with you, Mike, I get frustrated, just back to school night, when I can't go to, I'd like to go to every school, which, by the way, that's another thing, that like, everybody does it all the same night, that's the second one. So I just don't understand, like, if I have this calendar in front of me right now, like, for May, of every school thing, it's like we're gonna try to have this building and grounds meeting, like, what do you do? Like, you say, well, can't go that.
No, I'm not.
You know,
I'm not asking for, I told you, I said, I'm not necessarily asking that for that.
No, I'm not criticizing, I'm just asking, like.
But certain things would pop out, like Relay for Life would pop out, and, I mean,
That's not our event.
Hidden in Plain Sight, rather, would pop out, and we might not be that quick to say, oh, that's a night for a meeting.
No, you're right, I mean, I understand.
Well, but it sounds like a few board members want to look into this.
We'll look into it on an administrative level.
Okay.
We'll do some brainstorming. The other alternative is we can look at our calendars and have a meeting about calendars. That was a joke.
I got it.
You gotta love bureaucracy. At least the Jets didn't draft the quarterback.
Yeah.
So,
If things were
there's
better,
that.
maybe we'd have a conversation.
Well, look, we got heavy duty. May is a big month for a lot of reasons. Plus, we've got the whole facilities planning we have to do, and that's, the policy took 3 meetings, which usually, it's not really that.
Totally get it right.
Yeah.
So many things that we might not have had 2 years ago.
Right. Okay. Any other board members? I don't usually do. So Val, you have your hand up.
Yeah.
It's gotta be on
This is
F4,
another question.
C5.
No. While everybody has their
What?
calendars out, I just wanted to.
I don't have it out, all right, let me get it out, all right.
I just wanted to formally invite all of the board and central office on May 17th is the special ed tea that we put on for the special education staff in our district, and we invite everybody from all 10 schools. It's at 3:30 in the afternoon.
3:30?
Yes.
Where?
Here.
Right here in this room. Trying to see if I could maybe move it into the gym, but most likely it's gonna be in this room. And I just wanted to formally put it out there and invite you all to attend.
I'll be
And
there.
I'm done.
I'll be there.
I'll be there now.
I heard
We
you
have to
had.
RSVP on that one, RSVP.
Thank you.
It works good.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna go, no. Oh, we, yeah, we gotta go into closed session. Yeah, no, we're going, all right. Okay, the next monthly meeting is May 18th. That'll be next monthly meeting, regular meeting, and the rest of the meetings we'll put on the website in the near future. I have a motion to recess to close session.
Peace out.
All in favor? Aye. I want to take like 5 minutes.
So I could have come today.
I'll bring it in. I know.
I know a week ahead of time, morning.
I know. Definitely.